The bass throbbed through Sophie's chest, a relentless pulse mimicking the nervous flutter in her stomach. The air, thick with the scent of expensive perfume and desperation, clung to her like a second skin. Neon light slashed across the polished dance floor, illuminating fleeting glimpses of writhing bodies, their faces lost in the rhythmic shadows. Sophie, tucked away in a dimly lit corner booth with her friend Chloe, felt the world away from the orchestrated revelry. Tonight was supposed to be about celebrating Chloe's birthday, but for Sophie, it felt more like another audition. Another chance to be seen, to be noticed, to somehow claw her way out of the suffocating grip of obscurity. She took a small sip of her watered-down vodka cranberry, the ice clinking against the glass like a tiny, fragile chime. Her gaze drifted across the room, skimming over the sea of faces, each one seemingly more confident, more radiant than her own. She tugged at the hem of her borrowed dress, a shimmering emerald green that felt both glamorous and alien on her slender frame. "Relax, Soph," Chloe said, her voice barely audible above the music. "You look amazing. Someone's bound to discover you tonight." Chloe, ever the optimist, radiated a confidence Sophie could only dream of. Sophie offered a weak smile. "I doubt it. This place is crawling with models. I'm just background noise." Chloe rolled her eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. You have the look, the walk, everything. You just need the right break." Before Sophie could respond, a ripple of excitement seemed to pass through the crowd. People shifted, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of something, or someone, at the entrance. Sophie, her curiosity piqued, followed their gaze, and then she saw him, Nathan, or rather, the Nathan Thorne, CEO of Thorne Industries, notorious playboy, and the subject of countless tabloid headlines. He stood framed in the doorway, a figure of effortless power and elegance. His tailored suit, the kind that probably cost more than Sophie's rent, hugged his broad shoulders. His dark hair was styled impeccably, and his jaw, sharp and defined, seemed carved from granite. He held himself with a quiet confidence that radiated outwards, drawing every eye in the room. Sophie felt a jolt, a strange mixture of recognition and unease. She'd met him once, briefly, a fleeting encounter at a charity gala a year ago. Back then, she was just a cater waiter, balancing trays of canapes while he mingled with the city's elite. They'd exchanged a few words, a shared laugh over a spilled glass of champagne. A tiny, insignificant moment in time, easily forgotten, apparently, not by him. His gaze swept across the room, seemingly searching for something, and then it landed on her. Their eyes met across the crowded space, and Sophie felt a wave of heat rush through her. His expression remained unreadable, a flicker of something, amusement, curiosity, in his dark eyes. He held her gaze for a beat, a silent acknowledgement that sent shivers down her spine. Before turning to speak to the man beside him, Chloe gasped, "Oh my God, that's Nathan Thorne. He's looking right at you." Soph. Sophie felt her cheeks flush crimson. "He's not looking at me. He's probably looking at someone behind me." "No, he's definitely looking at you," Chloe insisted, her voice tinged with excitement. "I saw it. What do you think he wants?" Before Sophie could answer, Nathan's companion, a tall, impeccably groomed man with a predatory smile, leaned in and whispered something in his ear. Nathan nodded, his gaze still fixed on Sophie, a subtle shift in his expression as she couldn't quite decipher. Then, he started to make his way through the crowd, his path leading directly towards their booth. Sophie's heart hammered against her ribs. What was happening? Why was the Nathan Thorne walking towards her? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Had he recognized her from the gala? Was this some kind of cruel joke? Or was this, impossibly, the break Chloe had predicted? He stopped in front of their booth, his presence filling the small space with an almost palpable energy. His companion lingered a few steps behind, watching them with an amused smirk. "Sophie." "Right." Nathan's voice was smooth, deep, a caress against the cacophony of the club. Sophie, still speechless, managed a small nod. He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his features, softening the hard lines of his face. "It's good to see you again." He glanced at Chloe. "And you are Chloe," she chirped, extending a hand. "Sophie's best friend and biggest fan." Nathan chuckled, shaking her hand. "I can see why." He turned back to Sophie, his gaze lingering on her face. "Julian here," he gestured towards his companion, "was just telling me about a new face he's looking for. Someone with potential. He mentioned you." Sophie's breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was the moment, her chance. The stale air of the cramped apartment thickened with the acrid scent of burnt toast. Sophie stared at her phone, its screen radiating a sickly blue light that illuminated the despair etched on her face. The headline screamed at her. "Rising star Sophie, former escort." Beneath it, a grainy photo from her past life as ruin. Younger, harder, a ghost of someone she desperately tried to bury. The accompanying article detailed dates, clients, even alluded to specific encounters. Her stomach churned, threatening to heave up the meager breakfast she'd managed to force down. She'd known this day might come. The past always had a way of slithering back, a venomous serpent in the garden of her newfound success. Nathan, Herr Lou, had warned her. He'd offered protection, a way to sanitize her history. But she'd refused. She'd wanted to earn her place in this world on her own merit, not through his influence. Now, her pride lay shattered, a broken mirror reflecting 1,000 shards of humiliation. A harsh sob tore from her throat. The modeling contract, the cover shoots, the whispers of future supermodel. All of it dissolving into a toxic cloud of scandal. She'd clawed her way out of that life, endured countless rejections, sleepless nights, gnawing hunger. And now, just as she'd begun to taste success, it was being ripped away. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Calls from her agent, from journalists, even from numbers she didn't recognize. She silenced it, the relentless vibrations mirroring the frantic beating of her heart. She needed to think, to breathe, to find a way to navigate this storm. The memory of Nathan's concerned face flashed before her eyes. His gentle touch, the quiet strength in his voice when he'd said, "Let me help you, Sophie. Let me protect you." Pride had choked her response then. A stubborn refusal to be his charity case. Now, the weight of his words pressed down on her, a heavy cloak of regret. She stumbled to her feet, the room tilting precariously. The once cherished view of the city skyline, a symbol of her aspirations, now mocked her with its indifferent grandeur. She was small, insignificant, a speck of dust in the face of this sprawling metropolis. Her carefully constructed facade of strength and resilience had crumbled, revealing the frightened, vulnerable girl beneath. The doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent intrusion into her swirling thoughts. It rang again, then again, echoing the relentless pounding in her chest. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Who could it be? The press? Someone from her agency, come to deliver the inevitable bad news. Taking a deep, shaky breath, she opened the door. Nathan stood there, his face etched with worrying, his eyes searching hers. He was dressed impeccably, as always, but the usual air of cool composure was gone, replaced by raw urgency. "Sophie," he breathed, his voice thick with relief. "I saw the news. Are you all right?" The dam of her composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face, hot and bitter. She shook her head, unable to speak, the words choked in her throat. He reached for her, his hands gentle on her arms, pulling her into a comforting embrace. She buried her face in his chest, the scent of his familiar cologne a small anchor in the chaotic storm of her emotions. "It's okay," he murmured, stroking her hair. "I'm here. I'll fix this." She clung to him, her body trembling, the warmth of his embrace a fragile shield against the cold reality that awaited her. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. "How?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "How can you fix this?" He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. His gaze was unwavering, filled with a determination that sent a flicker of hope through her. "I told you, Sophie," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "I'll protect you. I'll take care of this." She searched his eyes, seeing not pity, but genuine concern, a depth of emotion that surprised her. He wasn't looking at Ruin, the escort, the scandalized model. He was looking at Sophie, the woman he'd come to know, the woman he cared for. "Nathan," she began, wanting to say something, anything, to express the swirling emotions inside her. But the words caught in her throat. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I have a plan." He released her, stepping back slightly, a flicker of his usual composure returning to his face. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, dialing a number. As he spoke, his voice crisp and efficient, Sophie watched him, a glimmer of hope beginning to ignite within her. Maybe, just maybe, he could pull her back from the brink. Maybe he could save her. But even as that hope bloomed, a chilling thought crept into the back of her mind. What would he ask in return? The air in the penthouse suite, usually vibrant with the hum of city life filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, crackled with a static tension. Sophie, dressed in a borrowed silk gown, the deep emerald a stark contrast to the pallor of her skin, stood rigid. The glittering cityscape of Hong Kong spread out before her, a dazzling panorama that did nothing to soothe the icy dread clenching her heart. Across the room, Chen Bei, her rival, a woman whose beauty was as sharp and cold as shattered glass, held a champagne flute with a deceptively relaxed grip. The faint clinking of ice against crystal punctuated the silence, each tiny sound a hammer blow against Sophie's fragile composure. "So, Ruin," Chen began, the nickname dripping with venom. She took a slow, deliberate sip, her eyes never leaving Sophie's face. "Fancy meeting you here, at Nathan's private residence. I must admit, I'm impressed. You've certainly climbed the ladder since we last saw each other at that dive bar in Kowloon." Sophie's stomach churned. Chen's words were a barbed hook, dragging up the humiliating memories of her past, a past she desperately tried to bury. The dingy bar, the cheap whiskey, the desperation in her eyes as she pleaded with Chen for a modeling gig, only to be laughed out of the room. "I don't know what you're implying," Sophie managed, her voice trembling slightly. She clutched the strap of her purse, her knuckles white. Chen's laughter, a brittle, tinkling sound, filled the room. "Oh, come now, Ruin. Let's not play coy, we both know how you operate. Sleeping your way to the top is hardly a novel concept, darling. But you've certainly refined it into an art form." Sophie's breath hitched. The accusation hung heavy in the air, a venomous cloud threatening to suffocate her. She opened her mouth to retort, to defend herself against the insidious lie, but the words caught in her throat. How could she explain the complexities of her relationship with Nathan, the genuine affection that had blossomed between them, to someone so steeped in malice? Chen stalked towards her, the silk of her own gown whispering against the polished marble floor. "You think Nathan actually cares about you? You're a novelty, Ruin, a shiny new toy for him to play with. He's enjoying the chase, the challenge of transforming the ugly duckling into something presentable. But once he's tired of the game, you'll be discarded like yesterday's news, Sophie recalled, stumbling back a step. The fear that had been simmering beneath the surface now erupted, a cold wave washing over her. Chen's words struck a chord, echoing the insecurities that had plagued her since she and Nathan had reconnected. Was she just a fleeting amusement for him? A project to be undertaken and then abandoned? "You're wrong," Sophie whispered, more to herself than to Chen. She thought of Nathan's gentle touch, the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, the unwavering support he had shown her throughout the scandal. Could she be wrong about him? Could Chen be right? Chen's smile widened, a predatory gleam in her eyes. We'll see. But just in case you're starting to believe your own fairy tale, I thought I'd offer you a little reality check. Before Sophie could react, Chen lunged, her hand shooting out to grab a fistful of Sophie's hair. Sophie cried out, the sudden, sharp pain jolting her out of her momentary paralysis. She tried to pull away, but Chen's grip was like iron. "You think you can steal everything from me?" Chen hissed, her voice contorted with rage. "The campaigns, the endorsements, Nathan. I won't let you." Chen yanked Sophie's head back, exposing the delicate curve of her neck. A glint of metal flashed in Chen's other hand. A small, ornate hairpin, its pointed and now aimed directly at Sophie's throat. Terror seized Sophie, paralyzing her with a primal fear. She struggled against Chen's grip, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The city light outside the window blurred into an indistinguishable kaleidoscope of color. The only thing she could focus on was the sharp point of the hairpin, the cold, hard reality of the danger she was in. This wasn't just a catfight. This was a deliberate, malicious attack. Chen's eyes, blazing with fury, held a terrifying intensity. "You're nothing," she hissed, her voice barely a whisper. "You'll always be nothing." The pressure of the hairpin against Sophie's skin intensified, a stinging prelude to what felt like inevitable violence. Sophie closed her eyes, bracing herself for the pain. This was it, she thought. This was how it ended, not in a triumphant blaze of glory, but in a quiet, desperate struggle in a luxurious penthouse, her dreams and aspirations extinguished by the jealous rage of a woman she barely knew. Suddenly, Chen's grip loosened. Sophie gasped, opening her eyes to see Nathan standing in the doorway, his face a mask of fury. His eyes, usually warm and gentle, were now cold and hard, like chips of ice. He strode across the room, his movements swift and purposeful, and wrenched Chen away from Sophie. The air in Lu's office crackled with anticipation. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the sprawling cityscape, mirroring the boundless ambition radiating from the man himself. He tapped a stylus against the polished mahogany desk, his gaze fixed on the tablet displaying a series of stills. Ruin, her face, once etched with vulnerability, now radiated a captivating strength. The photographs, raw and intimate yet undeniably glamorous, pulsed with a life force that transcended the digital medium. This wasn't just an ad campaign, it was a resurrection. "It's perfect," Lu murmured, a rare smile playing on his lips. He could almost feel the shift in the air, the invisible currents of public opinion beginning to turn in Ruin's favor. The scandal, orchestrated by her venomous half-sister, Serafina, had threatened to swallow Ruin whole. The accusations of unprofessionalism, the leaked photos, all carefully calculated to destroy her nascent career. But Lu hadn't forgotten the fire in Ruin's eyes, the resilience that shimmered beneath her quiet demeanor. He had recognized a kindred spirit, someone who, like him, had called their way up from nothing. He wouldn't let her be extinguished. He swiveled in his chair, addressing the marketing team assembled before him. "This isn't just about selling a product. This is about reclaiming a narrative." His voice, usually smooth and controlled, vibrated with an underlying intensity. We're not just launching a perfume. We're launching a comeback. And Ruin. He paused, his eyes meeting the expectant faces around the table. Is our phoenix. The campaign went live at midnight. It wasn't just an advertisement. It was a short film, a visual poem that captured Ruin's essence. It began with a close-up of her hand, delicately tracing the lines of a shattered mirror. The fragments reflected distorted images, whispers of the scandal, the cruel judgments that had threatened to define her. Then, as the music swelled, the shards began to coalesce, reforming into a single, radiant reflection. Ruin, bathed in golden light, met the camera's gaze with an unwavering confidence. The final shot lingered on her face, the scars of her ordeal barely visible beneath the newfound strength that emanated from within. Within hours, the internet was ablaze. Ruin Rising became the top trending topic worldwide. The film wasn't just visually stunning. It resonated with a raw emotional honesty that cut through the cynicism of the digital age. People were captivated by Ruin's story, her resilience in the face of adversity. The comments section, once a breeding ground for hate and speculation, overflowed with messages of support. Queen. One user wrote, "We stan a resilient queen." Another echoed the sentiment. "She's back, and stronger than ever." Lou watched the online frenzy unfold, a quiet satisfaction settling in his chest. He'd anticipated a positive response, but the sheer magnitude of the public's embrace was overwhelming. He picked up his phone and dialed Ruin's number. It rang 3 times before she answered, her voice hesitant, tinged with disbelief. "Lou, have you seen it?" he asked, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. A long pause followed, punctuated by a shaky breath. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," he replied gently. "Just enjoy the moment. You deserve it." He could almost picture her, sitting alone in her small apartment, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. The girl he'd met years ago, struggling to make ends meet, serving coffee in a dingy cafe, had blossomed into something extraordinary. The scandal, meant to crush her, had inadvertently forged her into a symbol of strength, a testament to the power of resilience. "Thank you," she finally managed, a voice thick with emotion. "For everything." "You don't need to thank me, Ruin," he said, his voice a low murmur. I believe in you." He paused, a flicker of something deeper than professional admiration coloring his tone. "I always have." The silence that followed stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotions. He could hear the faint sounds of traffic in the background, the distant hum of the city that never sleeps. But in that moment, the world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them suspended in a fragile bubble of shared understanding. The campaign had not only resurrected Ruin's career, it had rekindled something between them. A spark that had been dormant for years, waiting for the right moment to ignite. The scandal, the betrayal, the hardship. It had all led to this turning point, this moment of possibility. The tide had turned, and Liu knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this was just the beginning. The opulent ballroom of the Grand Regency shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, casting dancing prisms of light across the polished marble floor. Ruin, no longer the timid girl in borrowed gowns, stood radiant in a scarlet dress that flowed like liquid fire around her. Her eyes, once clouded by uncertainty, now blazed with a newfound strength. Tonight wasn't a fashion show, but a showdown. Tonight, she reclaimed her life. Her father and grandmother, perched like vultures on a plush velvet sofa, watched her approach with a mixture of apprehension and disdain. The scandal orchestrated by her grandmother, a cruel attempt to leverage her granddaughter's newfound fame for their own financial gain, had backfired spectacularly. The public, initially swayed by the fabricated stories of Ruin's supposed gold-digging schemes, had rallied behind her after Lu's impassioned defense and the subsequent expose of her family's machinations. Ruin stopped before them, her chin held high, the air crackled with unspoken accusations. Her father, a man perpetually hunched under the weight of his own failures, avoided her gaze. It was her grandmother, her face a mask of brittle composure, who spoke first. Ruin, you've made a spectacle of yourself, dragging our family name through the mud. Ruin's voice was steady, devoid of the tremor that once plagued her. You dragged our family name through the mud, grandmother. I'm merely cleaning up the mess. Don't you dare speak to me in that tone. Her grandmother hissed, her voice laced with venom. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done to me, Ruin corrected, a voice rising. Using me, manipulating me, trying to sell me off to the highest bidder. That's what you call doing for me. Her father finally looked up, a flicker of shame in his eyes. Ruin, your grandmother only wants what's best for you. Ruin laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed through the ballroom. Best for you, you mean? You've both spent my entire life leeching off me, using my dreams to fuel your own greed. She took a deep breath, the anger slowly giving way to a sense of weary resignation. I'm done. I'm done being your pawn. I'm done letting you dictate my life. Just then, Lou appeared at her side, his hand finding hers. His presence radiated a quiet strength that bolstered her resolve. He looked at her father and grandmother, his expression impassive. I believe Ruin has made herself perfectly clear, he said, his voice calm yet commanding. From this moment forward, she will have no further contact with either of you. Her grandmother sputtered indignantly, about to launch into another tirade, when Lou raised his hand, silencing her. He turned to the assembled guests, a small smile playing on his lips. I have an announcement to make, he declared, his voice resonating through the ballroom. All eyes turned to him, a hush falling over the crowd. He looked at Ruin, his gaze filled with an affection that made her heart soar. I'm pleased to announce my engagement to the woman who has captured my heart and shown me the true meaning of strength and resilience. Ruin. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Ruin's own breath caught in her throat. She had known Lou was planning to propose. They had discussed it in hushed tones late at night, sketching out a future filled with shared dreams and quiet moments. But to do it now, in this moment of triumph, in front of the very people who had tried to tear them apart, it was a declaration of war, a testament to their unwavering love. Her grandmother's face contorted in a mask of disbelief and fury. You can't be serious. You're marrying her? After everything she's done? Lou's eyes hardened. Everything you've done, you mean? The truth is out, Mrs. Thorne. Your schemes have been exposed, and your reputation is in tatters. Ruin, on the other hand, has emerged from this stronger than ever. She is a woman of integrity and grace, and I am proud to call her my future wife. He turned back to Ruin, his eyes softening. He took her hand, slipping a dazzling diamond ring onto her finger. The stone caught the light, sparkling like a beacon of hope. Ruin, will you marry me? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. Tears welled up in Ruin's eyes, tears of joy and relief. She looked at Lou, at the man who had seen her at her lowest and loved her through it all. She looked at her family, their faces etched with defeat, and in that moment, she knew she had finally found her happy ending. Yes, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Lou pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in a warm embrace. The applause of the crowd faded into the background as they held each other, lost in the moment. The scandal, the betrayal, the hardship, it all seemed to melt away, leaving only the pure, unadulterated joy of their love. As they stood there, bathed in the warm glow of the chandeliers, Ruin knew that this was just the beginning of their story, a story not of hardship and struggle, but of love, resilience, and the triumph of the human spirit. A story that, despite the darkness they had endured, had finally found its light. The opulent penthouse suite, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, felt like a cage. Ruin, perched on the edge of a plush velvet sofa, clutched a crystal glass of champagne, the bubbles mirroring the turmoil within her. Across from her, Lou, his jaw tight, stared out at the glittering Hong Kong skyline. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the residue of the bombshell her father and Chenbei had just dropped. "They can't do this," Ruin whispered, her voice trembling. The words echoed the desperate plea in her heart. Her father, ever the opportunist, had not only exposed her past relationship with Liu to the ravenous media, painting her as a manipulative gold digger, but had also colluded with Chenbei, Liu's ambitious rival, to threaten legal action against her, claiming defamation against their brand. The carefully rebuilt foundation of her career, the respect she'd earned, it was all crumbling. Liu turned, his gaze intense. "They can try," he stated, his voice low and dangerous. The familiar steel in his eyes, the one she'd glimpsed during their first encounter in that bustling cafe, was back. He crossed the room, his movements predatory, and sat beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from him. "But they won't succeed." His hand covered hers, his grip firm. "I won't let them." Ruin's breath hitched. The warmth of his touch, the unwavering conviction in his words, sent a wave of conflicting emotions through her. Relief warred with fear, hope with a lingering sense of betrayal. She had bared her vulnerabilities to him, trusted him with her fragile resurgence, and now, this orchestrated attack, designed to humiliate and destroy her. "But why, Liu?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "Why would my own father?" Liu sighed, running a hand through his hair. "He's desperate, Ruin, drowning in debt." Chenbei promised him a way out. His thumb caressed the back of her hand, a small, comforting gesture. "They underestimated you, and they underestimated me." The memory of their initial meeting, her clumsy attempts to impress him with her portfolio, the unexpected spark that ignited between them, flooded her mind. It felt like a lifetime ago. Now, the stakes were infinitely higher. Her career, her reputation, her heart, all hung in the balance. "They want to paint you as a scheming social climber," he continued, his voice hardening. "They want to discredit you, to make me doubt you." He turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "But I know you, Ruin. I know who you are." Ruin met his gaze, her own eyes shimmering with tears. The fear that had gripped her began to recede, replaced by a surge of defiance. She wouldn't let them win. She wouldn't let them tear her down again. "I won't back down, Liu," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I've fought too hard to get here." A slow smile spread across Liu's face. "I know you won't." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "And I'll be fighting right beside you." The ringing of his phone shattered the intimate moment. Liu answered, his expression hardening with each word. Chenbei was escalating the situation, leaking fabricated stories to the press, painting a picture of Ruin as a ruthless manipulator who had used Liu to advance her career. Ruin's stomach churned. The relentless onslaught of negativity felt suffocating. She watched Liu, his jaw clench, his eyes blazing with controlled fury. This wasn't just about her career anymore. It was about him, about their relationship, about their future. He ended the call with a curt dismissal and turned back to Ruin. "They've called a press conference," he said, his voice tight. "They think they can control the narrative. They think they can break us." Ruin felt a surge of adrenaline, fear mingled with a fierce determination. "Let them try," she whispered, her voice laced with newfound steel. She stood, her gaze unwavering. "It's time to fight back." Liu's eyes softened, a mixture of admiration and something deeper, something that made her heart skip a beat. flickering in their depths. He reached out, his hand cupping her face. "Together," he said, his voice a low rumble. Ruin nodded, her fear giving way to a sense of exhilarating anticipation. She was no longer the timid girl who had stumbled into his life. She was a survivor, a fighter. And with Lou by her side, she was ready to face whatever came their way. She would reclaim her narrative, expose the lies, and fight for the love they had found amidst the chaos. This was her moment, their moment, and she wouldn't let anyone, not even her own father, take it away from them. The penthouse suite shimmered, a panoramic view of the city lights twinkling below like scattered diamonds. The air, thick with the scent of lilac and the lingering notes of champagne, hummed with a newfound peace. Ruin, no longer the girl haunted by shadows and whispers, stood bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. Her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows showed a woman transformed. Calm was the fragile uncertainty, replaced by quiet strength, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Lou stood beside her, his hand gently resting on the small of her back, a silent promise in the gesture. The echoes of the tumultuous evening had faded, leaving behind a serene stillness. "I never thought," Ruin began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'd find this again. This quiet." She turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "With you." Lou's gaze softened, a warmth radiating from him that melted away the last vestiges of her apprehension. He tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "Neither did I," he confessed, his voice husky with emotion. "I was so lost in everything else. I didn't see what was right in front of me." The memory of their first encounter, the clumsy meet-cute at the coffee shop, flickered in Ruin's mind. He, the aloof CEO, lost in his own world. She, the struggling model, dreaming of a life beyond her reach. It felt like a lifetime ago. The intervening months, filled with humiliation, betrayal, and the agonizing sting of rejection, seemed to compress into a single, painful knot that Lou's presence was slowly untying. "I almost gave up," Ruin admitted, her voice thick with unshed tears. "After the scandal, after my family," she trailed off, the bitter taste of their manipulations still lingering. Lou pulled her closer, his embrace a haven of warmth and security. "They don't matter anymore," he murmured against her hair. "None of it matters, we're here, together." The revelation of her family's machinations, their desperate attempts to exploit her connection to Lou for their own gain, had been a devastating blow, but it had also been a catalyst. It had forced her to confront her own vulnerabilities, to find her voice, and ultimately, to forge her own path. "I know," Ruin whispered, a voice regaining its strength. The support she'd found in unexpected places, the photographer who believed in her, the friends who stood by her, had given her the courage to fight back. She was no longer the naive girl who had walked into that coffee shop all those months ago. They stood in silence for a long moment, the city lights painting their faces in a kaleidoscope of colors. The gentle hum of the city below was a soothing counterpoint to the tumultuous emotions that still simmered beneath the surface. The air crackled with unspoken words, promises hanging heavy in the silence. "What now?" Ruin asked, finally breaking the spell. Lou smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "Now," he said, taking her hand in his, "we build something real, something that can't be touched by the whispers or the lies." He led her to the plush sofa overlooking the city, their hands intertwined. They talked for hours, their conversation a tapestry woven with dreams and aspirations, fears and vulnerabilities. They spoke of their future, of building a life together, far removed from the toxic world that had tried to tear them apart. Ruin shared her vision of using her platform to support aspiring models, to shield them from the predatory practices she had endured. Lou listened intently, his admiration growing with every word. "I want to create a foundation," Ruin explained, her eyes shining with passion. A place where young talent can flourish without fear of exploitation. A place where they can be nurtured, supported, and empowered. Liu's heart swelled with pride. He had always been drawn to her strength, her resilience, but now, seeing her passion ignited, he felt a profound sense of connection. "I'll help you," he said without hesitation. "We'll do it together." The first rays of dawn began to paint the sky in hues of pink and gold as they finally drifted off to sleep, curled up together on the sofa, the city lights fading into the soft glow of the rising sun. The penthouse, once a symbol of Liu's isolated world, was now a sanctuary, a shared space filled with the promise of a future built on love, trust, and shared dreams. The journey had been arduous, fraught with challenges and heartbreak, but they had emerged from their ashes, stronger, wiser, and irrevocably bound together. The whispers of the past had been silenced, replaced by the quiet murmur of their love story, a story that was just beginning.